Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for being here. We have a really interesting session today. I'm quite excited about it. Max is going to be facilitating, and we're going to be talking about shared vision for a thriving landscape. How's everybody doing today? Everybody awake? Some folks still getting coffee? All right. So as you know, you can go on to the next slide, please, Max. At our session on Tuesday, we talked about landscape partnerships and with a really strong focus on landscape governance and how we can collaboratively manage the landscape, the different roles and the different functions that different stakeholders and different actors play in the landscape. And the focus was about bringing these people together and thinking about how they can work together as a team to manage a landscape. And today we're going to talk about shared vision, which is building off that, thinking about, okay, if we're all going to work together, we need a common goal. We need a common pathway, common direction for us to work towards so that we can make the most of our collaboration. So that's what the session today is focused on. You can go on to the next one, please, Max. As always, I'm not going to go over these rules again because I think you're bored of seeing the slide by now, but I just wanted to, mention once more that the goal of the session really is to, for us to create a space for interaction amongst the EcoAct staff and especially the Raccolto team. So if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, post questions in the chat box, use the reaction buttons as much as you want, and really feel free to interact as much as possible. We'll try to speak slowly. If we're not speaking slowly, if you can't understand anything we're saying, please let us know. And so you guys know Max already. He was here for the first, I think, 3 or 4 sessions. I'm going to hand it over to Max. I don't know if you want to do a brief introduction again, Max, but handing it over to you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Patricia. Well, yes, it's a pleasure to be here again. Well, my name is Max. I've been here in the first session, and I'm very happy to be here today with you guys once again. And soon we will start discussing the topic. But I think, Patricia, you was
I'll do the
handing
objectives.
over to Patricia again.
Thank you. Sorry, I got that mixed up. All right. So as I mentioned before, the session is about shared leadership. Shared vision. And we have 3 objectives for the session. The first one really is to think about, for you to understand what a shared vision is, exactly what the elements are, what the ideas are, the different benefits, the time frame, really for us to fully understand in depth what a shared vision is. We're also going to talk about the process to develop shared vision. And then finally, we're going to go over a tool or some steps that will help you facilitate the development of a shared vision in your landscape. So we're going to start with we've already done the check-in. We're going to start now with a recap of the homework, just to get our juices flowing and get as a little bit of an icebreaker. Then I'm going to hand it over to Max, and we're going to look at the key ingredients for the shared vision. And then we have a guest speaker, Elvira Marin Irigari from Alvalal in the Iberian Peninsula is going to be here, and she's going to present the case study of how Alvalal developed their shared vision. So I'm really excited about that. Then we're going to have a break. I'm sorry, this is in the wrong order. The coffee break's actually before the case study, I believe. I'll adjust that. And then after the break, we're going to talk about developing how you guys could facilitate the development of a shared vision in a landscape. And finally, we'll end with the communication of a shared vision and other communication elements. So I'm going to jump into, just as a little bit of an icebreaker, we're going to talk a little bit about last session's homework. I'm going to copy this question into the chat box yeah, so just as a recap of last session, we ended the last session that Bemi presented talking about landscape governance, and she left us an activity at the end for us to think about what roles we see in our landscapes, what roles we see in the landscape partnership. So I was hoping we could stop sharing the screen, Max, and maybe open it up to the group, see who has their cameras off and who'd like to share a little bit. If anybody thought about, if anybody did any first, I guess, did anybody complete this activity? What were your reflections? If you have any thoughts to share with the group. Maybe Mafi, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Hey, Mafi. Do you have did you have an opportunity to think about the activity after the last session?
Yes, about the question that you put there. Yes, I was wondering here in Guatemala at the lake, it is an institutional like platform, right? And the challenge that I have now is that they implement this landscape approach because it is not in their agenda yet. They are talking only about weather and some news about some institutions. So now for me, it's a little challenge to start talking about the topic, and that's the goal this year.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Mafi. Mariela?
Yeah, thank you. So in the landscape that we are starting with this approach with integrated landscape management here in Peru. So we seek to be, for now, an active member, and because we are new in the territory. We know that there are a group of organizations and stakeholders that are working on more now after the workshop in Brazil that we met Omar. Omar is the person who is responsible for the forest management. But I have had the experience in the conformation, the creation of multi-stakeholder spaces. For example, in other region here in Peru, in Cajamarca. So so we were part of the creation of that space, and now not myself, but Recolto is facilitating through another colleague that that platform. So we had the chance to map actors, to try to involve different stakeholders, then to stop and give them time to know what we are pursuing. Yeah, so I know about those roles, an active member and a facilitator.
Thanks, Mariela. Thanks. Yeah, that's really interesting. I remember from the last session, I can't remember who it was that mentioned that after all of the reflection in the session that they identified that their role as Recolto in their landscape was as a facilitator and as a convener of the landscape partnership. And it was such a beautiful and spontaneous mention. And it just seemed to fit so beautifully with the role of Recolto in the landscape. And I was really excited to hear that. I was wondering if others have a similar reflection. Is that the role that you guys see in the landscape now, is maybe starting to bring people together, organize the people in the landscape, identify the stakeholders, start bringing them together, convening and facilitating these discussions?
Patricia, I think Andre sent a message here in the chat saying exactly this. So maybe Andre could share a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I actually can't see his message. Maybe he sent it directly to you. Please do, Andres. Andres?
Yes, Andres.
Yes, no problem. Well, good morning or good evening. Yes, as Recolto, I think the main role in this landscape partnership is as facilitator and organizer. It's the same as Mariela said. I think it's very important role because in landscape partnership you have a lot different actors with different point of view. So it's important in this case, for example, Recolto have a lead in this as a facilitator and organizer. That just is the idea.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Anders. And I have a question, another follow-up question, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but has the idea of your role changed since the beginning of the course to now? Has this idea matured, or have you always identified yourselves as the conveners, facilitators of the landscapes?
We can change depending on the context, and also I think it's part of the the strategy for sustainability, because I think it's important to give others also the opportunity to strengthen capabilities to lead, no? And maybe we can, not only we, but the different stakeholders can rotate, can move with that lead position, or through that lead position.
Good morning, everybody. If I may, I think here in Honduras, at least, Recolta's role in general, when we work with the multi-stake platform, the only thing that is constant is change in some way, because we started as a leading role first, especially when you start kind of mapping and considering everyone who is involved in that landscape. But then once we found, for example, that we have already a platform that is the Commonwealth of Municipalities, for example, in Amoprolago, they are the one who has the lead now. But like Patricia mentioned, and we said in the previous session, I think Recolta's main function is to facilitate and coordinate, and sometimes to give some guidelines, because we are the one, even though they have been doing it for a while, in some cases, they don't have the methodology, as we will be a little more with some knowledge that we've been acquiring through the time, and especially with this training course, plus the readings and everything else, the experience in different countries. So I think for us, the role is changing depending on what stage of the platform we are. In some way, I think it's important, especially right now, we're starting another kind of platform, and it's not an internet landscape, but stuff has to go step by step, and you have to move with the pace that the other members of the platform works. And in some way, you have to lead, in order facilitate, and in order you have to give guidelines at the same time. So it's just something that is depending who is at the moment, like for example, if the presidency, to say it in some way, or the one who leads the platform in an area, sometimes they have different characteristics as a leaders. So in some way, you as a Recolto, you have to step up, reinforce some of the things that probably they lack of. So, but mostly it has to be on top and facilitate, coordinate, and guide through the process. Of course, we have a specific agenda as a Recolto, but in general, we have to do it that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was great. And that made me think about Bemi's slide on the different types of leadership and the shared leadership model, where there is a lot of change, there's a lot of continuation, but you're working, collaborating in the leadership structure, right? Sharing the leadership. Thank you so much, Ro. And Max, I saw you had your hand up. You can take it away.
Well, I don't know if I still have something to say, because Raul said everything now. No, very nice actually, Raul, and I totally agree with what you mentioned, because I agree with what Mariela and Andres said before as well, because I think Recolto has a lot of the capacities and characteristics to be like a leader, a facilitator, a coordinator, because you guys, in one sense, you know, are neutral, kind of a neutral stakeholder in the landscape. That like the main purpose is to work for the development of the landscape, of the people, of the environment. So it's a very neutral position, but also because you guys have like this the capacity on the knowledge for coordinating this, understanding the importance, and possibly how to do a process like this. But in the same time, as Raul said, this position may change depending on how the platform evolves. So now you may have in the beginning a position of organizer, but later, if a different stakeholder is empowered and feel that or a leader like have the capacity to take the lead on this process or on coordinating it, this is like the best thing. And possibly Ricoto could take a different position, such as, for example, being the technical advisor or knowledge producer, or Ricoto has a lot of experience on technical stuff as well. So I think this is something that is really nice to reflect on, and to just finalize what I wanted to say is that it really the experiences vary a lot. I think Mariela saw and Mafi saw like in this meeting 2 weeks ago in the Latin American network of model forests, of landscapes. There are many experiences where the lead was taken from different stakeholders, from universities, from consultant companies, but also from the government. And there's always like different like the pros and the cons of having these stakeholders there. But this, I think we may discuss more later. But just to mention that anyone can take different positions. Well,
Thanks.
yeah.
That was great. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point that you made. I think we can get back to the presentation if you'd like to share your screen again, Max. And now I correctly hand it over to Max, and he's going to start talking about shared leadership. So shared vision.
1 second. I'm just correcting something here and we'll share. Can you see my screen, Patricia?
We can, thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So please let me know if you don't hear me well, or if you need any adjustment here. So thank you so much, Patricia, and again, everyone. It's very nice to be here joining you since the first meeting that I was very happy to facilitate. For those who wasn't in the first meeting or don't remember, my name is Max Yamauchi. I'm from Brazil. I work with Eco Agriculture Partners in this group, thinking on innovations in capacity building, on integrated landscape management, and I'm also part of the management team of the Latin American Model Forest Network, which is a network of landscapes working with this integrated management perspective. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here, and yeah, let's start. So I think it's always good to refresh our minds. What are we talking about in this process? So definitely we're talking about integrated landscape management, this landscape approach. What it is? Well, we've discussed it many times, but it's never bad to refresh. integrated landscape management is a way of managing the landscape, okay? First of all, it's a way to manage a landscape, but it's a special way where we've searched for the collaboration, okay, among the different multiple stakeholders from multiple sectors and people who have different interests and impacts and influence in the landscape. All this with the purpose of achieving sustainable and resilient landscapes. So this is the idea of what we're talking about. And how do we do this? And in EcoAg and with other partners, we work with this idea of the 5 elements of the integrated landscape management. So we've seen this wheel and we will keep on seeing it because it's our framework, is the way that facilitates us to guide our process. So we started our sessions with intro to ILM, but jumped really quickly into this landscape partnership part. So with Natalia and Claudia, we talked about inclusion, about stakeholder mapping and engagement with Gustavo. Tuesday with Bemi, we talked about governance within the landscape partnership. Then we have the second step, that is shared understanding. That is also very important, but in this course, we're jumping a little bit, but shared understanding is the process where once you have your landscape partnership, so the people engaged and wanting to collaborate, you build a shared understanding on the landscape situation, basically. So it's a process where everybody should discuss and agree on what is the situation, what is the status of the landscape. So what is the context? What are the problems? What are the challenges? What are the future possible scenarios? So it involves a context analysis, like understanding the how in terms of environment and social and economic aspects is going the landscape, and people agree with this. So everybody's talking about the same thing. So in other words, shared understanding is like a common point of view of the landscape, making sure that everybody understands what are the main challenges and opportunities there. Patricia.
Thanks, Max. I was just going to mention, I don't know if you were going to talk about this, but one of the most interesting tools that we use for shared understanding is the SET tool that we shared with you guys back in June. And the idea of the SET tool is really to facilitate a conversation with these key landscape partners, with these key stakeholders, to understand the context of the landscape. So this is something that maybe we didn't explore it as well as we wanted to, but maybe there's an opportunity for you to go back and revisit that tool in the future. Thanks, Max.
Perfect, Patricia. Yeah, that's it. So the SET, the situation and exploration tool, it's very, the main purpose of it is that people can discuss and know also their capacities on this process. After shared understanding, we have this step of vision and planning, then taking action, and then learning and impact. Vision and planning is the one that we're going to discuss today. That is mainly focused on creating a vision of the landscape, a long-term vision. We're going to talk about this. Planning, so strategic planning, action planning, and also the financing part of it. Taking action is in the implementation of the vision and plan. And finally, you have the learning and impact step to keep on adapting and learning and keeping on this wheel. So when we're talking about vision and planning, now entering to the topic of the day, we are talking about the process of forging a long-term and inspiring vision and strategy. So something that will guide us and let us develop a spatially targeted action plan, something that is very local, place-based, a plan that really has to do with implementation. And definitely all of this is related to a landscape finance approach. So some of the outputs or the steps within this vision and planning element you have the building of a shared vision we're discussing today, then a landscape strategy, an action plan, and a finance strategy that involves all of the previous. Okay, so we start always with a vision. Okay, a vision of the landscape. What we want for this landscape? Build a strategy, an action plan, and the finance aspect. Although before I presented it as a last step or last outcome, it's something that is really integrated. And I think starting in the next sessions with Juan, we will already start to talk about action planning and finance, and all related to each other. Okay, so this is how we frame this element. The vision leads to the strategy leads to action plan, and all of this planification process are embedded with finance aspects. We're talking about different time frames as well, as we're going to discuss. While action plans are, more related to projects, short-term perspectives, like 1, 2 years, 3 years. Strategies, sometimes 5 years to 7, 10 years, possibly. And the vision is even longer. So finally, let's understand what is a shared vision. We're talking about a vision, we're talking about a shared vision. So basically, a shared vision, in short words, describes a partnership's aspirations for the landscape on a generational time scale. So we're talking about a vision that basically presents what we want for the landscape in a vision. It provides a broad look at the direction that the landscape actors hope their landscape will move in. So it provides us this guidance, this direction, and, serves us as a powerful tool, to guide us and finally motivate action. It should serve as an inspiration. When you see this vision, you feel inspired, you feel motivated to work for it. So the purpose of it is to be a guide and a motivating tool. And the vision, it can be expressed in many different ways. The most common probably is in a written text, something that you can read and understand. But if you can also express it as an image or a video or even a different format, but that has to be clear, accessible for the different stakeholders in the landscape, something that easily send a message of this vision of what we want. Okay, so any questions about what is a shared vision or even the previous? Okay, how?
I'm sorry, it's me again. I just trying to think about in cases that where we have to get to this shared vision, everyone should be on board, I assume. What happens if we have a landscape where we have different actors with different powers and different interests? And we have some of them, for example, we have, let's say, local government officials, probably some small business, some small growers, but there is another powerful sector that is still not on board, not because they don't want to, but probably because they still don't understand how the landscape works, the integrated landscape works. Can we go forward with that shared vision, but for that group, and then incorporate later these people, even though they still have not grasped all how this thing works? I'm not sure I make myself clear.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for your question, Raul, and I think we're going to cover it in more in advancing the presentation. But I think it's a very good point because, well, I think the first thing to discuss here is that, when we're talking about the landscape partnership, we have this idea of having all the stakeholders on the table, you know. And this is, you know, the best, the perfect scenario, the ideal scenario, where you have all the representatives of the interests, right? But we know that it's a very long-term process, and you cannot probably start or have a landscape partnership with all of them from the beginning. It's very complicated. And in most cases that I've seen landscape partnerships being consolidated, sometimes it start much smaller, with like a smaller group of people who start being interested, and this group can keep on growing, right? So I think, just to summarize, and later we can discuss this more, the landscape partnership is something that is not static. It's something that can evolve, can change, and can grow, and can go and can get smaller sometimes, but you can always revisit everything that you do in this landscape partnership. So if you have, I don't know, a group one day, you can start building a vision with this group, and you can always, you know, edit, adapt, revisit when you have different people. Definitely the process of building a vision, we will discuss. It involves consulting, presenting to other stakeholders that sometimes aren't in the partnership yet, but it's something that always can be revisited. But we will discuss this more soon. I think Patricia has the hand.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Could you go back to slide 9? I just wanted to speak to something that you mentioned that it speaks
What
to
is the 9?
question. It's the ILM wheel. That one there. So Max mentioned the blue section here called Learning and Impact. This is a really important element in the ILM wheel that I don't think gets enough attention. One of the principles of integrated landscape management is that we work with something called adaptive collaborative management. And what that means basically is that we're continuously learning, we're continuously adapting, and and that's why it's an ILM. ILM isn't a step-by-step linear process. It's a circular process. We're always growing, we're always adapting. There are always multiple iterations. So just to add that, I think as Max was saying, it's fine to start with a vision and have different versions of the vision, have iterations of the vision, develop and deepen and enrich the vision as you know, as time goes on. Ideally, in a perfect planning process, in an ideal world, you have a shared vision, you develop the mission statement, the vision statement, the goals, the objectives. It's very linear, but that's not the world of ILM. So we work in a slightly more adaptive collaborative management is the term we used.
But it's a really good question, Raul. And I was going to say right now, I was thinking, it's something that you can keep this question and ask also to Elvira, that's coming to present her process. Like, how was the first time, if there was changes, depending on new stakeholders or actors that arrive in their landscape coalition. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yes,
can we keep on? Sorry.
No, I just was wondering because in some cases we really need these other actors that are not on board, and sometimes the most people that are on the platform already probably have a shared vision already, and the other ones has to get on board, but kind of not match sometimes. So I just was wondering, and at the end, like Patricia said, and you also, this is something that is evolving and changing with every different actions and decisions that we make as a group.
Yeah, no, definitely. The ideal thing would be to have this really important stakeholders since the beginning, because they can feel more like empowered and part of this process, you know. Definitely is different when you arrive in something that has already been discussed with the proper time than like just an adaptation moment, you know. So if possible, it's great to have the stakeholder from the beginning. But in the same time, we cannot wait forever to move for them, right? Well, so let's keep on moving.
Max,
Then,
so
yes,
yeah,
yes,
I left a question in the chat, but maybe you can explain later when you describe the process or the elements that we need to take into account when we develop, or when we formulate a vision. Because
no,
sometimes it happens that that the
sorry.
different stakeholders want to zoom or want to create a shared vision, what do you say, adding the vision of the every stakeholder. But maybe you
No,
can
no,
describe it later.
it's a very good question, and I hope we will cover it in the next slides, but we can discuss it soon. Okay? Okay. So now, why is a shared vision important for a landscape? We've been just mentioning this. The importance of a shared vision for a landscape is because it provides direction to this group of people. So it's a common point where people can come back and we will guide them in their actions in many sense. So it inspires action as well. People should feel happy, or well, not happy, but inspired and motivated with it. And it's a very important thing as a common point to revisit when making collective decisions. So it's something that serves you to, take a step back when you're in decision-making moments, when you're sometimes in conflict or more tension moments, revisit what is this common goal, what is this common direction of everybody to try to find better paths for all. So this is the importance of a shared vision. Now, what are the key ingredients of a shared vision? And it has to do a little bit with what Mariela have been asking, but later on we will discuss more what Mariela asked. So what are the key ingredients? What are the basic things that could be present in a shared vision? And now what I'm going to present to you, it's something that we think, but it's up to each landscape to decide which ingredients should be included in their shared vision. So what should be included? Well, there are many possibilities, but it's very context specific, and everybody will find its own way, each landscape. However, there are some basic elements that might be interesting to keep in mind. Okay, so let's see some of them. A shared vision, it's something that might be interesting to consider what we call the 4 main benefits or the 4 returns, which are the benefits that we want to see in the landscape. So we want a landscape where people feel inspired for the next generation. So it's something that can appear in the vision. We want to see human well-being. We want to see healthy nature, and we want to see a regenerative economy. So these are things that in one or other words, it doesn't have to be like this, should be expressed in a vision, because it presents the improvement of the landscape, the improvement of the nature, the improvement of well-being or of livelihoods or the economy. So it's something that should appear in the landscape perspective, vision, and long-term vision. We talk about multiple land uses. So when we talk about landscape, we're talking about different land uses. So it might be interesting as well to have in this vision something mentioning where it is happening in the natural habitats and the rural and the productive lands. So talk about regenerative protection and land use, and also in the settlements, both in cities and communities. So when we're talking about these main benefits, we're talking about it also happening in physical places, to say. So sustainable settlements, infrastructure, and industry. This is how the things happen in practice. You might include them in different ways in this vision, but it's something that helps to ground what you're talking about as a benefit. So we also think it's very important to talk about the time scale. And in the 1000 Landscapes initiative, we talk a lot about generational time scale. Generational time scale, it's a long-term time scale. Basically, we're talking about around 20 years or longer. It's a really long period, but we talk about this more or less this number because we understand that environmental, economic, and social systems take a lot of time to change. Their transformations is not within the time of a project or even of a strategic plan. It takes a lot of time to see something in the environment change, changes in the water flows, changes in the temperature, or even see changes in more structural, economic, and social aspects, right? We've seen this, I think, in the first session we had. Also, what is really important in this time scale is that we can find a continuity over generations. So this same goal vision covers and includes different generations that will grow seeing and having it as a vision. It's not a short-term thing that was something that a generation thought and then the new one will get and never heard about it, you know? So this has to do with, I think, what Claudia and Natalia presented. It's the intergenerational integration, right? But we need a time scale for that. And finally, prepare for climate change. So we all know that climate change is there. And if we have a really short-term vision, we cannot like tackle this really structural problems. Something else to be considering in this vision is really to be inclusive. So we talked a lot about this already. When creating a landscape vision, make sure that everyone who will affect or is affected by the landscape is represented in the vision. This might not appear in the vision like with too much detail, like all the different, the diversity of people that might be there, or it can appear, but sometimes just mentioning the importance of being socially inclusive, at being diverse, and considering it in the landscape vision. So this is a different key ingredient. Now, inspiration and motivation. So inspiration and motivation is something that is already more related to what our dream is, what we want to see changing, right? So we're talking about sometimes about values. We're talking about, for example, environmental stewardship or economic prosperity, social equity, cultural diversity, health, resilience, education, collaboration, accountability, adaptability, tradition, ethics, democracy. So these are words, example of words and values that are part of our common ground of these stakeholders, that they want this to be the basis of this vision, you know? So as a landscape partnership for visioning for the landscape, we want that environmental stewardship is a base, is a value of our action. So taking care of social equity or economic prosperity and fair distribution, maybe it's something that this landscape partnership might put as a central topic, right? So this provides inspiration and motivation to the group of people who was there, okay? Common purpose. So this is something that I think it's also really important that comes up with the dream and the inspiration and motivation, but it's a very context specific thing, because the previous one, they are like more broad and things that everybody wants to see happening in the landscape. Of course, each landscape will think what is their priority in terms of values, but it's interesting to have some context specific factors that everybody is aligned and unites to. So you might have, for example, landscapes where water problematics or drought, it's something that is clearly the challenge of landscape. We've been talking about and in last weeks in Pantanal, we talked with the people from Abancay in Peru, and they see the water topic as something so important for everybody, and it's something that everybody is aligned to. So there are landscapes where trash pollution, it's something that is a factor very clear and heavy for landscape. So maybe all the actors will be aligned, like we want to see a landscape where the trash is managed correctly, where we don't see trash in the landscape in besides the roads. So it's something very, how can I say, very landed, very practical, that helps people to see the change in practice. Like imagine how would be their landscape with no trash on the streets, for example. And this might be used as an entry point, as a common point, a common purpose for people to align in this vision. It can be something related to unemployment or poverty or hunger, or even fire management in landscapes where there's a lot of fire that affects everybody. So this kind of things, context specific challenges or proposes, might be interesting to appear in a vision that people feels very connected and wanting to see the change. Finally, a vision should be something clear and easy to understand. So I asked Patricia which image we could find for this, and she found this one, and I really liked it. So you need something that it's easy to communicate, that shouldn't be like complicated. It's just like easy to understand. Okay, so I think we're talking about this straight line here. And finally, something that from one side has to be realistic. So here comes like the idea of a vision that can be really achieved. So it should be realistic in this point, but in the same time, ambitious in the term that we want to see real changes, structural changes, something that really moves the landscape to another level. Okay, otherwise we would be talking about more short-term things. So yeah, just keep it real, like is saying this guy in the image. I don't know, Patricia, who's this guy, but I like it, this image. So yeah, just to summarize, some of the key ingredients of shared vision might be, doesn't have to be always like this. The four main benefits or four returns, multiple land uses, generational time scale, gender, and socially inclusive, inspirational and motivational, common purpose, clear and easy to understand, and realistic and ambitious. And this is just to start answering a little bit, and I don't know if there's a definitive answer for what Mariela asked, but these are some things that you might want to start aligning the stakeholders to build a vision. So definitely everybody will have their interests, but we will try to make this exercise of clustering, grouping their ideas, their dreams into something that can be, satisfying to everyone. So I don't know, Patricia, I think we are on the coffee break time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We do we're a little bit early. I was going to ask if you want to do like a 5-minute break for questions. If anybody has any pressing questions or comments or reflections to share, and then we could go into the coffee break.
Well, if anybody have any questions or comments on what we've just seen about the key ingredients of a shared vision, you're more than welcome. I don't know if there's any of these ingredients that aren't not yet very clear, or you would like to present something on your own experience. We will have some questions about this later, but Carolina, please.
I wanted to share, well, hello colleagues, hello everyone.
Hi,
I wanted to share an experience and also
Yeah.
ask for
Hello,
your
Carolina. If
guidance.
you'd like to turn on your camera, it would be really nice as well.
Again, there is not a power in my where I live, so I'm connected with
Oh, okay,
my
no, don't
cellular
worry.
data. Sorry about that. So the question that I had is, once we were talking about the shared vision in the landscape we work on in Ecuador, which is in the coast, a lot of the actors were talking about the economic problems, for example, poverty, and there is this need to increase economic activities. So that was kind of the goal for some of the actors. But for some others, of course, there is this issue about water. There's lack of water. There's a lot of deforestation. So other actors were talking about that as the main issue. So when we were talking and thinking about what could be something that glue us together, there was these like misunderstanding, because I see the relation between economic activities and conservation, but not everyone saw it, and it was really challenging because the actors from the local governments were really into increasing economic activities. So from your experiences and with the tools you have to run the stakeholders platform, how could you or what would be your advice to bring together these different ideas so we can have a shared vision?
Thank you so much, Carolina. It's a very good question, as well as I think it's very much related as well to what Mariela and Raul brought before. And I think, well, this is a real and very might be like a really common problem among landscape platforms, and you need really to negotiate. But I feel like the vision process is not so much in negotiation. I think here is not this idea, but it's really to touch people, to find them, to find their common points, their grounds. So it's really to find people to understand. I think it's something that you mentioned, like the relations of the environment and social and economic problems that people might understand, but finally that everybody can somehow see that that all of these things will be thought to be beneficial to everybody. So nobody should be like completely against economic development or improvement, or even to conservation, when we're talking about something that is balanced between them. So when we're talking about the process of visioning, and this should we're going to explore this just after the Yavalau presentation. In the facilitation process of building a vision, you really try to find like what are the common points that people might have in common to build this vision. So we will try to see this in more detail soon, but basically you will try to find words where these different stakeholders, like mentioned, economic, things, poverty, conservation, try to cluster and build it in the same like sentence or goal. Patricia.
Thanks, Max. Just to reply also to Carolina, I think that that's a really deep question, and it deserves a lot of discussion, and we'd be happy to talk to you about it later in more depth if you like. But one thing I was going to say is that it seems like the discussions in the group are either focus on one thing or the other, when in fact, I think you could focus on both. You don't need to choose one unique goal. You can have a series of goals and see how these different goals interact together. So just to add that. Max, it's 9:30 now. Should we move on to the coffee break?
Yeah, please. That's great.
Okay. So if you'd like to stop sharing your screen, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 9:35. Elvira is already here. Elvira, do you want to say hi? Do you want to turn your screen on and say hi? Hola, Elvira.
Hello. Hola.
Hi.
Hello.
So we'll stop for 5 minutes and then we'll be back shortly. Elvira is going to tell us about her experience developing or facilitating the shared vision process for the Alvalal landscape. So see you in 5 minutes, 9:36 for me, whatever hour it is for you guys in 5 minutes. See you soon.
And I'm super happy to be able to share the experience of this organization called Alvalal in the southeast of Spain. Okay, my name is Elvira Marin, and I live in a very, very small village next to the city of Granada in the southeast of Spain. And I've been working as the director of Alvalal Association since 2016. Now I have other role in Alvalal, but today I would like to tell you the experience of the last 10 years in Alvalal. Okay, Alvalal is okay, next, please. Yes, Alvalal is an association of different stakeholders. Most of them are farmers. And this organization was created in 2014 when a group of farmers, mostly farmers, decide that they should find other way to make agriculture because big challenges were happening on this area. And in that moment, Common Land, that organization was looking for a pilot project to implement the 4 returns framework. So in that moment, they joined Common Land and Alvalal, decide to work together on this holistic landscape restoration project. The area where Alvalal is acting is 1 million hectares in the southeast of Spain, where there are 4 protected areas inside this big area, and there are 200 inhabitants. There are big challenges as erosion, desertification, loss of biodiversity, but also lack of opportunities for young people. So there is a rural area where young people have no opportunities for developing their own jobs. No. Next slide, please. Yes. Of course, we are in the most arid area in Europe. So there are big, the climate is a high steppe plateau with a semi-arid climate, with a very, very low rain, and with soils with low organic matter. The 1 million hectares, 500,000 are agriculture lands, and the other half is natural areas. So Alvalal is developing an holistic restoration project to restore the natural areas, creating a restoration project for biodiversity, but also promoting regenerative agriculture between farmers to restore the agricultural lands, but also developing business cases that can give the added value to the product, and the farmers can receive a higher price for their products from regenerative agriculture. This area is the biggest area of rain-fed almond trees. It's more than 100,000 hectares of almond trees. And the big opportunity is that around 70% is certified as organic. So this was something that create this big extension of organic almond make the first seed of the Alvelal. So the farmers that were organic, they really joined to be more than organic, not only organic, more regenerative. And this is important. It's a rain-fed area, so the farmers that are living here are producing with the water from the rain. Next slide, please. Yes, the biggest challenges I mentioned is the certification and loss of soil, because of there are practice. So the land use practices has produced this erosion of the soil, because here there is not too much rain, but when it's raining, it's very, very high. So there is a big problem of loss of soil, of agriculture or fertile soil. And of course, this area is a very poor area. So people live from agriculture, but not there are any industry. There is no other business. So there are no opportunities for young people to live in the area. So one of the objectives of Alvelal is create employment for young people to establish here. And of course, the other big challenge is that the farmers are not, that are working in this area, they don't receive a good price for their products. So one of the objectives of Alvelal is also develop business cases that can create an added value to those products that come from regenerative farms. Next. So in 2014, when Alvelal started, together with Commonland, they developed a process to create a vision for the next 20 years. Of course, Alvelal decided to use the 4 returns framework, but they use for this process of creating the shared vision, they use the U theory. It's a methodology to create this process involving different stakeholders with different workshops. So for during 1 year, the first year of Alvelal, they develop different, together with Commonland, with some expert facilitator in U theory, develop this workshop. Yes, I think one of the success of this period in this process was that in the first workshop, they were developing together with stakeholders the dream, no? It was about dreaming for the next 20 years. So they, during 1 day together, they were dreaming about how they will see this area in the next 20 years. There were a lot of young people on this workshop. So it was very, very enthusiastic, and there was a lot of energy on this first workshop. And I think that was one of the first success, or one of the reasons of the success later. Yes, at the end of this process of different workshops, of course, first, Commonland and Albelal developed a stakeholder mapping. So there was a first phase to mapping all the stakeholders in the territory, not only farmers, also business, also local government, researchers, other organization or association. And at the end of this process, in the first year, like the conclusion was, or the vision was that it was needed to align economy and ecology, was like the conclusion, no, for the area. And with this output from this different workshop, Albelal designed a plan for the next 20 years. So it was in 2014. And then in 2019, Albelal update this plan, this shared vision. So in 2019, Albelal started again to do the same or a similar process of shared vision, because new stakeholders were joined the organization, but also because Albelal itself changed a little bit, no, with the impact and the result that Albelal had in the previous years. So in 2019, again, with a facilitator that have some experience on youth theory, developed a process with 5 workshops involving a stakeholder from the territory. And finally, the output of this process in 2019 was a landscape plan. So it was not only about vision, it was more it was about vision, but also about barriers and actions. So finally, we have Albelal nowadays they have this landscape plan for the next 20 years. Next slide, please. Yes, and this is more or less how the landscape plan looks like. So the idea is to divide the territory in 3 areas. Natural area, combined area are the farms, and economic area that is focused on business. So for a natural area, the vision was the creation of a green corridor for biodiversity that can connect the protected areas across restoration project in public and private lands. And on farms or agricultural area, the idea is to create a network of farmers that are working with regenerative practices. And finally, on economic zone, the vision for the next 20 years is a region with business developed by the local people that can increase the added value of the product. Next slide. Okay, this is more or less how the area looks like nowadays. So in this so Albelal started in 2014. Now it's 10 years. So this is how it looks like now. And the last slide, please, I think. Okay, yes. I don't know what to mention here, Patricia, sorry.
Yeah, no, I can help you here, Elvira. This
Okay.
slide actually speaks to a slide that we had back in the beginning that listed the different ingredients. There were 8 actually. We only listed 6 for Elvira that were easily to identify. We didn't want to put words in her mouth, but they aligned with the list of things that we encourage you to consider when you're facilitating a shared vision process. So for example, it's important to consider the 4 benefits, the 4 returns for landscape. So here we're checking boxes. Did Al-Falal consider the 4 main benefits? Yes, they considered how to motivate people, how to promote well-being, restore nature, and regenerate the local economy. So they considered all 4 benefits in their vision. Did it consider multiple land uses? Yes, because they considered the natural areas, the ecological corridors, the 3 different, the economic areas, the mixed areas. Let me go back to the other slide and check what for example, oh, one more. They thought about the natural zone, the combined zone, and the economic zone. They also thinking about a generational time scale. So it's not a plan for the next 2 or 3 years, but they developed a 20-year vision, and so on. So this slide really just speaks to how you considered all of these different ingredients when developing the shared vision. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Elvira, or.
No, I would like to only to finish talking that now in my new role, I am developing other process of create a shared vision in the full Iberian Peninsula. So now Albelal is like have 10 years of experience, and we are now creating a network with other landscape that are doing landscape restoration. Now there are 9 landscape that are part of the 4 returns Iberian network, Iberian Peninsula network. And now we are in a process to create a shared vision for the full Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. But together, we are not work with farmers or local people. We are working with organizations that are doing landscape restoration in different areas in the Iberian Peninsula. So it's a similar process of create a shared vision, and we are going to use the youth theory again, but within other levels, no? Because at the end, the objective is more about policy influencing of this network, but we want to create together this shared vision.
Thank you so much, Elvira. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can ask Elvira some questions, and everybody can feel free to unmute yourselves and turn your cameras back on if you want to ask any questions. Elvira, thank you so much. That was really interesting. We haven't shared the Theory U tool yet with everybody, but we will do that. I can follow up tomorrow in an email. I also thought it was really interesting that we haven't talked about the planning, the strategic planning yet. That's in the next couple of sessions. But I thought it was interesting how you already made the connection between this is the shared vision. Now that we have the shared vision, how do we put this into action? How do we plan the next steps? How do we do? And I really enjoyed the spatial planning, the map that you had, where all of the different activities are happening. I also thought it was really interesting that you didn't get the first parts of the presentation, but we had 2 really interesting questions in the first one. One was from Carolina and another one was from Raul. Carolina was asking about how she could align that there are conflicting main goals in the landscape, and how to align those goals. And I thought it was really interesting that you talked about how you immediately identified that you need to align economy and ecology and work together with that dual focus. So I don't know if, Carolina, if that helps the way you're thinking about that. I see a little heart. That's great. And I also thought it was really interesting, Raul, based on what you were saying before about how if we don't have these key stakeholders engaged now, can we develop the shared vision without them, and what do we do? And it was based on Elvira's experience. You developed the first shared vision in 2014, then you revisited the shared vision in 2019, engaging new stakeholders and updated the vision. So I thought that was fantastic. And I see that I have more questions, but I'm going to hand it over to Raul and anyone else. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning from here from Honduras, Elvira. I was just wondering because I understand all the process. I think it was really good to see in real life what's happening with these stakeholder platforms and how they evolve and change. And looking at what you have presented us, especially the climate conditions regarding the area, I wonder how you can have incorporated the government, because it seems like the problem is that there is not enough rain, is that the rain goes in a specific periods of time with a lot of rain at the same time, and that produces like erosion and all the degradation on the soil and other problems with the land. So I wonder if the government has get involved and has some big projects that will help to accomplish this vision for the 20-year goal. I know it's kind
Thank
of
you.
outside the scope, but
Yes, thank you, Raul. Yes, so in general in Spain there is a big problem with water and drought. So government in general in different regions now there are restrictions for pools, but also for yes, different restrictions. So water is a big issue, for example, and of course in the area where Albelal is acting is Andalusia. Andalusia government have a plan for against drought or something like that, but it's not very aligned with the action that Albelal is proposing, because Albelal is trying to promote regenerative practices. So try to advise farmers to make hydrologic action on their farms to catch water from rain, infiltrate water into the groundwater, create ponds for biodiversity. So different actions that are not very aligned with the regional government. But there are other local governments there are 79 local government in the Albelal area. So with local government, we have a lot of alignment. So they have been involved in this workshop, and some of the plans that the local government have are now part of the landscape plan of Albelal. So we are trying to align with local government. That is much easier than regional or national government. But at the same time, for us, it's super important to work with government. For that reason, we are working in a manifesto for a regenerative territory, trying to involve local government, regional government, national government, all the government, to co-create the text of this manifesto. So we did last year, and now we are trying to use this manifesto as a tool for engage local government. And when we have the local government engaged, we will continue working with regional government and then national government. So the idea is to explain with real data, with scientific data, and with results on farms, how important is to manage water in a rain-fed area. No? Yes, this is more or less how we are doing.
Thanks so much, Elvira. Carolina?
thank you.
Hola, Elvira. I'm greeting you from Ecuador, and thank you so much for sharing your experience. It was very inspiring. I have a question regarding youth involvement, because when you start explaining Albelal and the very beginning in 2014, you were trying to reimburse this idea that, well, this fact that there are no opportunities for youth in agriculture, and that's why you brought also youth to this stakeholder platform, let's say. And I was wondering, how has that changed? How does youth feel right now? Because that was in 2014 and now it's 2024. Has something changed? And can you explain us more about that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question, Carolina. In 2014, at the beginning, there was a group of 25 persons starting this project. And now there are 500 persons that are part of Albelal Association. So in these 10 years in the middle, yes, I think a lot of things has changed. So regenerative agriculture is like more known, for example. So more people is talking about regenerative agriculture. So the farmers are joining now because they want to know more about regenerative agriculture, and the technical team in Albelal can give this advice. We have also some pilot funds for farmers. We have a shared machinery bank to do regenerative practices. So there are a lot of tools in Albelal now that have been developed in these 10 years to engage farmers and other stakeholders. So in one hand, Albelal is creating these tools, different tools, and of course, in the last 10 years, there are new challenges on climate change. There are new vision about regenerative agriculture, and I think something is important is that Albelal has created 3 new business cases that are paying a highest price to the farmers than only organic. So now farmers are interested also on joining those business to receive a higher price. And of course, Albelal is now working on a carbon farming project. So try to create a community-based organization with all the farmers to try to create a carbon project, and at the end, the farmer could receive an extra income for their carbon credit, no, doing regenerative agriculture. So I think the strategy of Albelal has done that the number of stakeholders that are now part of Albelal has increased.
Thanks so much, Elvira. That's did you say 25 people to 500 people over 10 years?
Yes.
That's incredible, incredibly powerful. Did I see Mafi's hand up? Do you have a question, Mafi, or no more?
Well, it has some answers when Elvira was talking. Hi, but I just wonder, how do you, or how to identify those local leadership? Because you also talk about these workshops, and maybe it can help, but for long term, how do you identify those local leaders in the territory? Because thinking like us here in Ricolto, our interventions are less than 20 years. So we are preparing like these cars, and we are all having the tools, but how do we put those tools in the territory for long term? That would be some question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mafi. Yes, at the beginning, in 2014, there was first a mapping of stakeholders and leaders. And for that, there was a lot of interviews. So I don't remember how many interviews, but there were a lot of interviews to people in different areas in the territory. And then those people say, okay, you have to talk with other persons. So the idea, it was about connecting, no? So there was 10 interviews, and then those 10 persons told us, okay, you have to talk with other 10 persons. So it was about creating these interviews, weaving, no, a little bit. And that was at the beginning. So it was possible to identify some leaders of different organizations. And in 2019, in this new process, was part of a project together with Ashoka called Bioregional Weaving Labs. And the focus was to look for leaders, or we call weavers. So we organized some workshops, try to identify local weavers. So the facilitator developed a methodology on this workshop to identify those leaders or weavers. Did you have other questions? Sorry, I forgot.
No, that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or any follow-ups? I have a question for you then, Elvira, if I might. I know that there's a lot of interest in this group about how you come to agree on a shared goal and find consensus about what the objective should be. I just wanted to ask, what was the negotiation process like when you were developing the shared vision? Were there a lot of conflicting views, or was the process more or less, fluid, and was everybody on the same page, or was there a lot of conflict?
Okay, at the beginning there were a lot of conflicts because, of course, an ecologist organization cannot be very aligned with a business that promote intensive agriculture, for example. So at the beginning there were a lot of conflict. So for that reason, the idea at the beginning was listening a lot, listening all the stakeholders and create the dream. So how we would like to see our children in the future, no? It was more about dreaming. In that process, some organizations leave of this, of course. So they are not all the organizations in or all the stakeholders in the area are now part of this Albelal organization. So of course, some of the some business, some companies, and some organizations that were not aligned, they didn't join the process. So, and I think that's normal, no? And it is happening. I know it's happening in other places. At the end, not all the organization can be aligned on this, but most of them. So I like, because some organizations that at the beginning were very opposite on conservation, at the end they see that conservation on farms could be also a business. So there has been also a process of capacity and learning on this. But to your question, Patricia, not yes, there were a lot of conflict, and some organizations decide not to continue working with Albelal.
Okay. So in the end, there was the consensus, or what brought the team together was the alignment between ecology and economy. That was the key. Is that the Mariela?
Very interesting. Thank you, Elvira. Mariela from Peru. So I had a similar question that you, Patricia, shared. And because of our experience here in Peru, and I think in Latin America or in many countries with enterprises, we have concerns with the companies, especially with the extractive ones. So my question was, how did you deal with them? But with your explanation, I understand that they didn't participate in the beginning, no? And then sometime later, they are joining, or they are more open to be part of. So my first question was, how did you deal with them? Not only with the enterprises, but also with the other stakeholders, because sometimes they don't like to work with enterprises now. But maybe, or from your explanation, maybe I think you are sharing a good lessons for learning, no? Is that give time, no? Because I think ideally every stakeholder needs to be not from the beginning, but maybe everyone needs their time. So that is what I understand. So it's more a comment. Sorry, Elvira.
Yes, I completely agree with you. At the beginning, yes. So sometimes the time, no, the time and the like the impact that you are having is the reason because enterprise or organization start to join the process. So for that reason, I think, for example, for Albelal, research projects are so important to have evidence that the way of regenerative practices or ecosystem restoration is working. So it's needed to have evidence for to try to engage new people or others that didn't join at the beginning. And of course, other important point, I think, is to engage those leaders that can be the bridge or the link between the organization and, in this case, Albelal, no? So there are some key persons that can do this work of, yes, be the link, no?
Thanks so much, Elvira. And I think we have one more question from Carolina, and I think this will be the last one because of time. Go ahead, Carolina.
Yeah, thanks, Elvira. You sort of answered just before because I'm very interested about the generation of data to work in this kind of projects. So my question is, and I just see Max's a question, it's something similar. Are you working for the research project? Are you working with universities? And is there a project that is funded by any organization to run this project? Because I think it's very key when you are trying to show an evidence to have the data. So I would like to know more about the process you have been engaged in.
Yes. Since the beginning, Albelal has worked with different research institute, different universities, or also the Institute of the Government of Spain of researching. So Albelal has developed different, or is developing different research projects together with research centers. Yes, I think it's super important. But of course, regenerative agriculture here in Spain is new. And of course, in these kind of areas, Mediterranean areas, very dry, is new. So for that reason, we cannot advise practices if we don't have the data that can be can have a positive impact. So there are research projects on regenerative agriculture, how impact on soil, on biodiversity, on water, but also other kind of research, more about governance, about stakeholder involvement. So we have developed different research, not only on agriculture, no, also on other social aspect.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Elvira. This was incredibly rich and detailed, and I think it was a very good example to add a little bit of more detail into the very theoretical process of shared vision that we've been talking about so far. I'm going to hand it back over to Max for him to take us through the rest of the session. Elvira, if you'd like to stay until the end, it would be a pleasure to have you. If not, thank you so much.
Okay,
again.
thank you very much. Ciao, bye.
Thank you.
Gracias, Elvira.
Thank you so much, Elvira.
Gracias, Elvira.
I felt very inspired for her message, but and also by her headset. So I put my headset here as well, trying to look like Elvira. Let me know, Patricia, if you can hear me well. I'm just
I can hear you. We can hear you. Thank you. I'm Max. I think that was a very good.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna share the screen, and I think well, it was really nice to hear from Elvira their experience, and I think we have to go express right now a little quicker, but I think what you presented pretty much helps explain and reflect in a lot of things. So I think I would say that I think Mariela like summarized a lot of things. Everything that we're talking about here, and
ILM. It's a lot of like, there's a lot of ideas and that are really not easy to implement and it takes time. So I think what Mariela just said, like things take time. You might not start perfectly, but you might start and later things will change from the boundary of your landscape, from the stakeholders that are engaged, that comes, that goes. It's something very, I mean, like it's a very dynamic process, and I think we might not uh, believe that everything will be perfect from the beginning to the end. Um, but well, I don't know if someone very quickly would like to share an experience in visioning exercises, like something quick, just because I think I've heard that in Zicoto you've participated in other processes of visioning, maybe not in landscape visioning, but I don't know, in a sector or even in a company or enterprise. I don't know if you guys would like to share or even write something on the chat. But well, if nobody, um, maybe I'll just keep on going very quickly because yeah, we wanted to present very quickly the process of developing a shared vision. Now we would like to discuss briefly in a workshop set or in a practical way, how can we develop or build a shared vision with a group? You know, so Elvira mentioned that this shared vision that they working with was created, was built in a workshop setting, in a process of different workshops. It might vary a lot how it will be done, but here we would like to present some steps and how 1,000 landscapes for 1 billion people have created, how would be a session for creating a shared vision. So the process of facilitating the development of shared vision can have some different steps, from identifying the key stakeholders to identifying some values and common purposes, visioning, so dreaming, listening and interpreting, clustering words and ideas, creating a vision statement, and reviewing and adapting the statement. So these are some steps that we present as a possible workshop process where you can, with a group of participants, of stakeholders, start creating a shared vision. So, I mean, I think with Ricoto, with the position that you guys are taking on the territory, this might be useful for you to reflect on how to start, well, once you have a group of stakeholders working with, how you might create a shared vision. So the first step we already discussed a lot, identifying the key stakeholders. So before you build this partnership, you definitely need a process of stakeholder mapping. So yeah, be inclusive, consider people from within the landscape, but also people who's outside and might influence the landscape. But in the workshop, in this meeting that you gather this group to create, to discuss a shared vision, you always should think of who is missing in the session today. So going back on what Raul mentioned, sometimes we will start with a smaller group, but it's always important to have in mind who's missing. Maybe is missing this company that is very powerful that in the beginning wasn't interested on it, but maybe it maybe will later. You know, I don't want to take time on that, but I think a really interesting experience that we're seeing in Brazil, Pantanal, was this big group of like people representing the mining company within the landscape that are really interested in being involved since the beginning of the Pantanal landscape uh, partnership. So once you start this workshop, let's say, you might review this, who's missing in the session in this day. With this group, you try to start dreaming what are their values, what are their common purposes, what brings them together, right? So you can try to explore with this group what are their values to identify a common ground and help identify potential conflicts. So here you already start to have a sense of, okay, this group is more interested in this group is more interested in that. This one takes value more on this or that. And with this, you will start to work on a more inclusive and meaningful vision and ensure the vision is grounded in long-term benefits of the landscape and inhabitants. Now, as examples, this can appear. It doesn't have to be like this, but these are types of values that different people can talk about. So I think it was nice that Carolina at one point brought this, because there will be definitely the groups that say, oh, in our values of the landscape partnership, there should be environmental stewardship, while the government is saying like, no, we need economic prosperity. And as a facilitator in the workshop and in the series of workshops and process, you might need to find a way that people is convinced that these all walk hand in hand, and they actually are synergistic efforts. So it's not that there won't be conflicts on this value, but there is also the art of the facilitation process and the coordinator to, try to gather this idea. I think we won't have time to discuss which values are important to you, but I would believe that Ricoto, think of many of those that appeared as example. So let's talk about visioning. Now, visioning is the process really to think of the future landscape, right? So in the workshop, and later we can share with more detail the setting of this session of visioning or shared visioning building. This is the moment where people start really thinking on the future. So they present their values, their interests, but then what they want for the future. And in this process, you might divide them in groups, and there are some details I can't go on right now, but you will guide them to think on some facilitation questions. So first, you ask people, why is this landscape important to you? You might have like really, really different answers for that. So different stakeholders might have a different relation to their landscape. For some, it's more personal relation. Oh, my grandfather arrived here and started working, so I love this region. So the other has feels it important because of the nature. Others have their income from there. Some companies sees the landscape as the place where they will produce only, but there is importance. People will reflect on that. People will reflect on their dream. So first of it, they will think, okay, why do I feel connected with this landscape? Now that they have this reflection, they will be like, so what do I dream? How do I want to see this landscape in 20 years? What is your dream? And in this dream is when a lot of these ingredients that we presented before might appear. Oh, I would like that this river is clean. I would like to see more forest. Everything is dry right now. I see a lot of poverty. So it's where it appears. And also this common purpose might appear in a more specific thing. So what is the specific landscape challenge that brings everyone together and that they would love to see transformed? this thing might appear in the dream. So as Elvira brought as an example, and I will finish really quick, we have only 5 minutes. As Elvira presented, there are some things on their shared vision that talks about real problematics of the landscape. So it's something that is wide, but in the same time is the specific of the landscape challenges. And finally, who are you dreaming for? It makes people reflect, the stakeholders reflect. They are thinking on just themselves and the dream, or they are really considering other people. And this is like a moment that as facilitators, it's our work to take off this hat of the stakeholders as representatives of their interests, but really think on everybody, basically. So once you have this, well, in this setting, well, this was an exercise in Kenya that 1000 Landscapes EcoAg conducted. You might use this question, and people can work writing it down, but also a nice exercise is that people use images or drawings to put their dreams on a paper. So with images, they will draw what they dream, can be different drawings, and later they will discuss and present and present within their group what are their dreams. The others will listen and interpret. So here the idea is when people start sharing their dreams, the others will listen carefully and attentively and interpret it and really try to find out and identify some of these ingredients that we presented before. So in this dream, do I listen some values? Do I listen some of these benefits? The stakeholders, what are the ones that I hear? The time frame. How long is this dream thinking about? And the land uses. So in this process, while people is sharing their dreams, the others should take notes and see, okay, this guy talked about this problem, this dream, these people. And once everybody here, everyone, you can start clustering some words, clustering some ideas. So there might be in this moment the opportunity to really see, okay, we hear a lot about people talking about degraded productive land. We hear a lot about people saying about participation, democracy. We hear about people saying that see a dream where their son or the youth have a place to work, benefits, stakeholder time. So put these words together, you've heard into groups. So it's a process of clustering words. And finally, you will work with this clustered ideas to start really building a vision statement. So within this same workshop or series of workshops, you will try to gather these different ideas. And here comes a little bit of what Mariela asked in the beginning. So how do you just mix everything? No, you try to find like synergy, things that people like agree in common, what are the most important, and try to build something that makes sense for everyone as a vision. So is the process really of articulating the previous ideas into something concrete? I'm not taking every word and finding a way to put it inside, but really finding what are the essence of it. Okay, so then you start asking yourself, are the ingredients there? Is it missing an ingredient that might be important? Is it something more or less concise? I mean, like a paragraph or 2 paragraphs that really express what I want? Is it clear and easy to understand? Is it realistic and ambitious? And again, don't worry, this is a first draft. You just have something you're starting with, and you might take it home as a facilitator or a group of representatives smaller. Okay, let me take this first draft and write it. Now taking more care with time, because within a workshop you don't have some time to, you know, work gram and things like this. And then you start an iterative reviewing and adapting process, where you might review, share this draft with everyone who participated in the visioning exercise, adapt, edit, then share, and after everybody approves it, you might share this statement with wider group of stakeholders, and this is an iterative process until all you would like to be satisfied. Okay? So I don't know, Patricia, we already have 1 minute after. This is the last 2 slides.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
I think I'll just talk about it very, very, very quickly. You can go into the next slide, Max, please. But this is just really a reflection to think about once you have your landscape vision ready, what's the best way for you to communicate that vision externally to your stakeholders that are outside the landscape? How do you communicate and continue building and redrafting and updating the vision statement within your internal group? So these are just some suggestions about how to do that effectively. I'm not going to go through them. We'll share the slides and you can read them on your own. But the idea is really to be clear, to be honest, to be transparent, to consider who you're speaking to and the language you should be using, and a reminder to never forget to celebrate all of the different milestones and successes as you go. And I think I'll stop there. I don't think we have time for questions. So we can go straight to slide 67, Max, please. And we'll just to wrap us up today. So today, April 4, we had a look at shared vision for a thriving landscape. Our next session is on April 23rd. So it's just in a couple of weeks away, I think, or 3 weeks away. I'm actually not sure yet whether this is going to be the topic. The next 3 sessions are going to be delivered and facilitated by our finance team. And they said that they might switch over the order of these topics because they make sense pedagogically to build off each other in a more comprehensive way. So I will follow up by email in a couple of weeks to tell you guys what the next sessions will be, and I'll follow up by email to share the resources that Bemi mentioned yesterday, that Elvira mentioned today, and the slides and the recording. And that's it. We're 3 minutes over time, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Max, for facilitating today. Elvira is already gone, but I'm very thankful for Elvira as well. And thanks everyone for coming and for participating. And Carolina, Raul, Matthew, Mariela, for everybody who contributed and interacted and asked questions and shared your experiences. We're very grateful for you all too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Mariela, if or if anyone has a last question. I mean, like, if people need to go, can go. But we took some time. We allowed like more time with Elvira because it was a really nice possibility, but we had to rush a little bit in the end. But if you have any last questions, or Mariela, if you'd like to say anything as well.
No, thank you very much, Max and Patricia and everyone. I think we will have time in the next session, hopefully, to continue talking about this. We are moving from different stages of the approach. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mariela.
Of experiences.
Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to send them by email as well. We're happy to answer by email. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Muchas gracias. Chao.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches.